Hello, you're listening to the Holistic Travel Nurse podcast. In this episode, I've gone from where I was talking a lot about weight loss and had some incredible stories of success and actually health success to having Julie back on. Thank you, Julie Reynolds, back on,
Yeah.
aromatherapist, because it is March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, a day where everyone usually is out and about doing something amazingly fun or some kind of celebration. And we are all inside. And we, as nurses and as a healthcare community, understand a little bit more what's going on than I think the average person. So we can give you some insights, some ideas, and hopefully support your emotions and your health. And really want to talk about, it is just vital, important right now to self-care. Self-care governs your health and keeping an immune system strong. Not every person can. There are people that are just more at risk, and this is why everything that's happening is happening. I bet you agree, Julie.
Yeah. So first of all, just thanks for inviting me to this conversation because I love the work that you're doing. And I think it's really important for us to have these conversations and just bring some hope and light to this situation. Yeah, I agree. I kind of think that I tend to think all things work together for good. And we just really have an opportunity to respond and not react during this time of crisis, really. And that's kind of a skill that would serve us anytime, not just during the times of crisis, but in any circumstance. And specifically now, when we need to keep our stress levels low, that's just, I guess, one good question that I like to ask. I think it's a good question to ask in times like this is, what does this make possible? So what can we learn and what can we be doing more of or doing less of to support our overall health and just so that we can have that healthy response in this time, because there's so much we can't control, but we can control that.
Absolutely. Yeah. You and I could very easily be working a lot more than we want to be working in days to come. So what we can be doing and what we are doing as people on the front line to support our health and our immune system is what we should be sharing with the general population, and especially those at high risk. I mean, I have family members. I jumped down my dad's throat yesterday when I couldn't get a hold of him on the phone. I'm like, wait a second, you should be at home. You're almost 70. And he's like, I went to the mountains with the dogs. Chill out. And I was like, oh, okay, you're allowed to do that. Then, I have a child also that has respiratory issues. So I'm like, okay, have you done this protocol every day? Because I have a protocol for myself, for my health. And I believe this is when a self-care model of protocol for your health every day is so important. Like, this is vitally important in our health. And so how we take care of ourselves and what we eat and what we put in our body, what we put on our body, and decreasing the amount of sugar, because sugar is going to work on our stress too. Sugar can increase your stress. So decreasing our sugar and increasing some foods that are going to be nourishing to our bodies right now. I think those are just key, highly key.
Right. I think
go ahead.
Any of us who ascribe to that wellness model versus if we've already kind of made that switch away from the symptom and disease management model into a wellness model. If you spent any time incorporating that into your life, we already know the things that we should be doing. So we either just keep doing what we already do, or we step it up and get more consistent with what we know to do. And yeah, exactly. Like eating right, moving more. I love that he was in the mountains, taking a walk, doing exactly what he should have been doing.
Yeah.
But that resting and managing stress, I think stress is a big thing right now. I know that I've had to monitor my stress response in this time, but you mentioned decreasing toxins, like, but what in, on, and around our bodies, and just being proactive. So I have to admit that I've really been all over the place with this. I mean, when it first started, you're watching from afar and it's not really hitting you. You don't know the facts and what led to it. You don't actually know the circumstances. And then it comes a little closer, but you still can't see it. Nothing personally has hit us at that point. And then all of this, what seemed to be like, there's still people that think we're overreacting. And so there's that. And then you start to think, well, maybe we are. I don't see anything happening. But then you start to just take in the facts. And I had to just get off media because my stress response, I could feel that I could start to perceive that I was getting more stressed than what served me. So I had to go and just go where what I do is I go listen to 3 hours of epidemiology podcasts and find out how I can learn to think about through this. So when I do hear the facts, I can filter them through that framework and that framework of science and how I'm going to respond. And it's going to be different for everyone. For some people, it's going to be just taking some deep breaths, applying some aromatherapy, going for a walk. So wherever that is, where that stress response starts to increase and you feel that, notice it, know that we're all in this together, and then choose that thing that you need to do. Is it more information or less information? Is it going for a walk, or is it taking sunshine? Whatever that is, it's going to look a little different for everyone, but it's really important that we all do that so I think it's easier to think more clearly when you're not so stressed. So when you let that stress response take over, that's when we start reacting to the stress, not necessarily the facts before us. So, like I said, I've just been kind of all over the place with this, to then swing all the way back to, oh my goodness, we need everyone to stay home and follow these guidelines. When you start to really process what it is that's going on and what it is that the decision makers are seeing coming our way. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree with all that, because I'm supposed to be traveling, like we talked before when this went live, and I'm supposed to be on a plane in a couple days. And so I've been kind of staying tuned, because every single day there's something new. And so I'm like, what's next? What's next? What's next? What are we going to be doing next? What are we going to be doing next? And then at the same token, I had this humble heart of, when I was in prayer, like, how can I, as me, it couldn't be just me. What if I can inspire others that we can do something more, especially as doTERRA wellness advocates and as nurses, to educate and support the communities that are higher at risk. Something that maybe wasn't done before, like in Italy or whatever. That's like this podcast, like this information. This is why I have scheduled Zoom calls with whoever wants to come on. And I have a structured call, and I had like 10 people the first time I did it Sunday night. And people that didn't miss it reached out to me and said, can you do that again? And so there are people that are going, wait a second, I'm lost. I don't know what to do with how to take care of my health. How do I support my elderly grandma? How do I support my parents that are 60s and 70s years old? How do I support my own health at that age? We are not seeing it affect the children as much. We are seeing it affect a lot of our elderly population, those with immune compromise, those with respiratory issues. So how can we, like as a nation, or as nurses, or as healthcare professionals, or wellness advocates, or as kind humans, support one another and do it virtually? And this is where it's going to be online and not coming together, unless you do make a Michael, unless you do make a care package and drop it off with someone, and you are not susceptible and you have no side effects. I mean, this is a time where you should be doing that. Michael, sorry, my husband, turn that down, please. Sorry for the background noise. My husband's here and got a ding. But I was sitting here making little packets of stuff, thinking, and I reached out to my church. This is my idea. I reached out to my church in my area because I'm a travel nurse right now. And I said, hey, I would like to support some senior citizens in the church. I'd like to give them a little packet of information about keeping their immune system strong. And if anybody else needs you need somebody in your community to cook for them or make a drop off a dish or shop for them or something, I'm available. And that's one way you can do that. Like my dad was telling me his neighbors shop for him. You know, if I was closer to my parents, I'm not close to my parents, I would have gone shopping for them. So those are one ways we can come together and really support each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, like, I don't know if you want to get into like what a virus is so that people understand a little bit about, you know, what I think it always helps me when I know the rationale of things that we're going to do. And I think there's a little meme that is circulating around that says, this is the year of the nurse. This is when they said this was the year of the nurse, this was not what I had in mind. And I think, and it's funny and you go, oh yeah, that's right. But then again, it's also a little bit of a call to those of us who have, like I said, ascribed to that wellness model. And nurses are positioned perfectly to be able to reach out into our communities and do these things that you said, and to teach people you can do these things, but also to help people understand that that a virus, we were talking about this before we got on here, is a virus is not like a bacteria or a fungus in that it's not really considered that organism, and we don't have a treatment for it. And nurses don't treat. We don't treat disease, and we don't prescribe medications. But what we can teach is wellness. So viruses are classified actually as a microbe, and they don't really have that life cycle like maybe in a bacterial that we coexist with all the time. And we have those those have their own way of replicating, and viruses have this life where we get exposed to them. And then those proteins that you see, coronavirus actually has those little crowns, which is where it gets its name. But those proteins on the surface are like homing devices that are just looking for the host cells. And so our scientists and our epidemiologists are trying to identify what host cells is this virus specifically looking for, and how can we cut that short? And this is what tells us what symptoms we're going to have. And I share all that not to be complicated about it, but these viruses have to find that host cell, and then they have to inject their DNA into that host cell. In order to replicate, the host cell bursts, and then we have that replication. Once that happens, that's when we start to get the symptoms. So there's a whole process that a virus, even once you're exposed to it, say you breathe it in and it's in your nose or in your throat. I've heard some epidemiologists say, stay hydrated. So your mouth and your throat are moist so that you're more likely to swallow it than breathe it into your lungs. So I don't know how much again, things you can't control, but to me, to be able to understand that there is a process here that viruses go through in order to wreak havoc on our systems. And that to me elevates that value of prevention. So all the things that we were talking about with what we put in and on and around our bodies. And again, we don't have a whole lot of control over the virus and does it make it to the host cell. But what we can do is those things, like you said, we can cut back on the sugar. We can reduce our stress, because when we're in our stress levels, we also get that inflammatory response from stress. So all of those things can help to, in the early stages of that virus exposure, even to keep us from getting symptomatic and possibly allowing that virus to take hold. So there are a lot of things, I mean, especially if you want to talk about can we talk about essential oils being part of
Oh
that?
yeah.
So,
Yes. Oh yes.
so even if we, we've got lots of literature that that shows us that in the lab anyway, we've got 1,8-cineol. They tested 1,8-cineol with antiviral medications and found that they were more effective together than apart. So we have oils that rosemary, laurel leaf. We've got some oils that can help prevent that process from ever taking place. Again, we don't use oils to diagnose or treat, and that's not what I'm saying, but adding that in with good nutrition, just like we would with vitamin C, high doses of vitamin C, vitamin D, all of those things. But germichrome is another thing that they've tested, and that's in our turmeric. When combined, had very significant results. But there's so many things that so many oils that are listed in the literature as being very preventative and supporting our healthy immune system. And that's really what we need to do right now, especially while we're social distancing. If you haven't been exposed, or even if you have, we just talked about the life of the virus. So, but all of those stages, if you're not symptomatic, especially, these are things that you could add in there as measures of preventative, but in supporting that healthy immune system. So Melissa is a great essential oil. You might have a favorite one, but lime is really great. And that's something a lot of people have. Lime, lemongrass,
Wild orange,
marjoram, black pepper, copaiba, cinnamon, eucalyptus, and of course we have oregano and thyme, which honestly, thyme is in all of my diffuser blends right now. There's a drop of thyme with wild orange, a drop of thyme with, I've got a citrus blend in my diffuser now that has, and then I've got a drop of thyme in there with it. So,
when you look at the chemical constituents of what's in thyme, you're like, oh, this needs to be in more protocols. Absolutely needs to be in more protocols.
Yeah. And it's very much studied. So you could even just go to PubMed and check out all of the studies, the different ways that scientists are looking at the activity of thyme and the effectiveness there.
Absolutely.
So all of those things that we can be doing to support a healthy immune system. And I keep going back to stress because I really think it's key. That's something that all of us understand, and it makes such a big difference. That mind-body connection is a very real thing. So what are we focusing on? Because that's...
Do you want to hear something funny?
Yeah.
We need humor in this. So yesterday in my scrubs, they thought I was just chubbier just because I had so many oils in my pocket. They're like, what are you carrying in all of your pockets? I'm like, oh, let's just pull all this out right here. I got my hand sanitizer. I need some steady for my mind. Let me give you some adaptive here.
That's actually awesome that somebody's like, what? I had like one of my approved sweatshirts on, and it has a front pocket. And they're like, what do you have all in your little kangaroo pouch there? I've got my On Guard, my hand sanitizer. I got my Stronger roll-on.
I'm like, this is just my supply. I don't know about you, but this is just for me. So that was pretty funny, and I got to share it with a few nurses who knew nothing about oils yesterday and are very interested now.
Yeah.
And we had an incredible mood and atmosphere that was non-stressful in an ICU. So, which is just so what we need right now. I was telling my dad, I was like, can I drop out I was like, can we drop off a diffuser and some oils? Because I have a grandma who's 94 in the nursing home. He's like, it's a no zone. You can't do anything there. And I'm like, I just want to give her a roller ball. And my dad's like, she's going to lose it like her hearing aids. But
there's like, another thing about our essential oils is we're not going to run out of them. So
true.
We have
matter of fact, actually, one of my healthcare professionals told me, you better be careful about medications right now because a lot of them come from China. I was like, oh, don't even tell me this. I'm like, I don't want any more bad news. So people that need life-saving or certain medications, I'm like, oh, don't. She's like, we're going to run out of that. And I'm like, well, don't give me anything more right now. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But
that also is like another thing about our response to it is that, yeah, I left work yesterday with a very heavy heart over our preparedness or lack thereof. We can't control that. We can control our response to that. And that, we're talking about the self-care and how we care for our bodies and our minds. And I think too, with the social distancing, if for someone who's out there who's still going, is this overreacting? I might lose my job over this. I mean, there's a lot of people worried about that right now, and legitimately so. With the social distancing, I talked to my family today, and I shared, just every time we make a decision to go out or have a gathering or take a risk like that, we possibly could be in promoting, like, somebody else is going to have to make a decision between two other people who's going to live and who's going to die, who's going to get the support that they need and who can't. And triaging like that is so much, it's serious.
Yeah, I had that as a certification I got when I thought I was going to do ER. So that's the trauma certification, and that everyone who has a nurse who has that trauma certification, and that's what's happened in Italy. They've not talked about that, where they have decided who's going to live and who's going to die, who they can think will live and who they can take care of and who they can't. And yes, as a nurse, that freaks me out, because it was actually the nurses that have that certification that make that judgment.
Right. And those triage decisions aren't anything that anybody wants to be in the position to make. But I would say that with the social distancing, everybody's in the position to make it. It's not just nurses and doctors. Every time that you decide whether you're going to gather or not, every time you decide where you're going to go, what you're going to do, if you're going to take these things seriously or not, observe them or not, you're making a decision. And I don't want to be all heavy about that, but if you think about, it's sometimes when you can't see the result of your decision, it's easier to just go, oh, this won't hurt anything.
Oh yeah. I didn't go anywhere today. I was going to go to yoga, and I decided not to. I wanted to go to yoga class. And so I feel that same way. I have masks. I have the N95, which I'm like, do I say that I actually brought the N95 mask home? All before this happened, I brought it accidentally home. So it's like mine, and I'm going to put my name on it. But I know, I mean, literally that was the news today, where he's like, hey, if the workers could give the hospitals more N95 masks. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me that we're asking construction workers to give us their extra masks for our hospital care system? I'm like, oh Lord,
this has been the hardest thing for me. Yeah. Is that, how in the world did that happen?
That's what I thought. I'm like, how do we get where we don't have a stockpile somehow?
Yeah. And that was what actually epidemiologists have also been calling for, a stockpile of masks, and it wasn't seen as a priority. So we don't have them. Now, again, that's all hindsight, and we can criticize, and I do. I'm not, I can't say that I'm perfect with this mindset, but just really being intentional to pull it back. So, and that would be the other thing, that in this time, it is not possible to be all sunshine and roses all the time. We are going to go through a whole myriad of thoughts, responses, and emotions to this. And one day is going to be totally different. And then as soon as somebody personally affected to you, it changes just as fast as a virus changes.
I cried yesterday. I had a friend of ours in the wellness community messaged me and telling me she's in the ambulance on the way to the ER. Her temp's 104, and she passed out because her blood pressure was low and she might have the virus. And it was that like hit home when you have a friend, even though they're in another state or wherever they're at, and they message you and like, could you pray?
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, on the heart. And
yeah. And then we're going to have like swings where we feel a little more optimistic about the way it's going and we got this. And then pretty soon, you know, and it is just because the news just keeps coming and, you know, this person loses their job. I mean, it's not all even health related. It's, you know, I know that my son was dealing with losing his job and you just like, we're all over the place. So we're going to have those thoughts. And I guess that's where also a mindfulness practice comes in, to just notice it. I feel this way and it sucks, but I can take this thought captive and how am I going to respond to it? How is it going to serve me? And all of those things are things that we need to be, you know, write them down where we can see these questions and manage it, because it's just that important to manage our stress levels as well. So even from a practical standpoint, so to have the thought, notice it, don't judge it. You're not bad. Yep. You're not bad. You're not a worry wart. You're not cynical. Like, don't stop with the labeling of all of that. It's just, you had a thought, you had a concern that probably millions of others are having at the same time or will have. You notice it and then just take it captive and turn it into something that serves you a little better. And maybe it's going to serve you by making you take action, like you said, to take somebody, you know, some groceries, or that use that anger or the frustration or the worry to propel you to do something positive that's going to serve you and others better.
Oh, I agree. But I also think we can use our oils for our emotions every day.
Absolutely.
And have an emotional protocol. I mean, if I didn't have them for my emotions, it would just be like, I'd be like one hormonal hot mess, because I'm all like premenopause. And so I'm like, ah. And so I'm like, I might douse myself more than what I should, just because I want them for my emotional support. And so they're so supportive for our emotions, and they're so supportive and it's okay to have anger and to let your body have that anger emotion, and, you know, do something with it. If you can get outside and go for a walk, if you're angry at whatever is going on, or if you're sad, it's okay to have that sad emotion. And we can pick up an oil and not have it cheer us, but we can have it console us and help us console ourselves. The console blend. We can do those things. We can put some things on our wrists or breathe them in to keep our stress levels more important than anything else, because an increased stress, and maybe that's why the media is not explaining as much as we want scientifically as nurses or physicians or anybody in healthcare. We're like, oh, wait a second, you're just not giving even us enough data. Because they were like, we don't want to freak you out.
Yeah.
So,
or they don't want to give us data that's going to change tomorrow till they know it, because we are going to jump all over them if they're wrong. What is your favorite emotional support blend right now?
So Steady and the whole adaptive line, because you can have the adaptive supplement also. Yeah. And I take that at night, and that increases GABA, that works in your brain. There's so much science with that. And so I love that. I even do St. John's wort, but not everyone can do St. John's wort because it interacts with medications, a lot of medications.
I've seen so many helped by the adaptive blend. So it's always one that I recommend first. I think I use a lot of Forgive, especially in the workplace. You mentioned Console. I don't use as much as that, but Forgive. I would say the flowers are right now what I'm particularly like. I like to, so I have to wear a mask because because I don't get the flu vaccine. And so I wear a mask every day anyway, which I think they're probably going to take my mask away from me.
They told me that was my mask for the day. That's what
So,
happened the
yeah,
other
you
day.
only can have one.
Yes. And so I decided I have some there, and I wondered if I should get the markers and decorate my masks, and I'll bring it back to work. Mine's going to be the smelly, oily one too. So it'll be my mask.
Oh, I love the yeah, my mask smells like magnolia or jasmine. So,
You know, kind of like the OR, they have those things that go over their mask. They make those little cute ones that they have, and they have the cute little hats, all the OR nurse and all the, I'm like, you know, because they have the cute little, I don't even know what you call it that goes over their head, and they will make their cute little own little masks. I'm like, actually, that's a great entrepreneur job. People make some cute little masks for us nurses.
oh yeah. I think
But they were like, really, we can take our style up to a whole new level at work by the
so what
masks
does
we're
this make
wearing.
possible? Those of you who have a little craftiness in you, make some masks, get them out there.
That is a fabulous. I just thought of that. I mean, well, I love that joke, and I will post the funnier things on also my Facebook, because I need that sense of humor. And my husband will always. I mean, the toilet paper thing is just has been ridiculous, but at the same time, it has been a big anxiety, because my mom had my brother over and his wife, and she's like, I had to give him toilet paper, because she goes, Erica was really anxious about running out of toilet paper. It was a severe anxiety, you know, and especially
Yeah.
as females compared to the male, they don't understand. I'm like, we want our toilet paper.
The toilet paper thing made no sense to me all the way up to the point where the grocery stores were going to close. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yes.
That's still baffling me. What would people
I don't,
think that
I
they
don't,
would need toilet paper for?
well,
No.
I can tell you one thing, nobody's going to be TPing anybody's house with it right now. So there's none of that going to be happening, because people are going to go over that house and clean it up to take
Yeah.
their stock. I don't know.
That one is still baffling me a little bit.
I don't even understand it at all whatsoever. But I saw it here. And the paper towels make more sense, because you want to clean the house and you want to make your own household cleaners. And so the paper towels make sense. But the toilet paper does not make sense. So
I think we can all
there
agree
we're
that
ending
hoarding
this
it does not
on a
help
very
us.
good high note when we have to talk about toilet paper and making sense, you know. And I mean, toilet paper can be the new currency in some areas where people are really desperate. I mean, people post on Facebook, could you please share some toilet paper with me? And like, oh my gosh, could some neighbor please give them some toilet paper? Quit being a hoarder of toilet paper. And so I reached out to more of my friends, and one of my questions, because I wanted to leave things at a nice note. I mean, I did ask her. I asked one friend I haven't talked to in a long time. I'm like, how is it going there? There's another fellow nurse, and I'm like, okay, but the big question is, and she's like, what? And I'm like, do you have toilet paper? She's like, yes. I mean, so
yeah.
and
so
anyways,
go down in history as the great toilet paper crisis. Okay. So, okay, now we're going to get ourselves into trouble for making light of a difficult situation.
I know, because people are going to go, wait a second, I am so low on toilet paper, you have no idea. And I'm like, get creative. You know, when you go through the drive-through, ask for a lot of napkins.
I saw somebody posting like little Ziploc bags of Leaves organic and marking it organic toilet paper. So,
Let it not be poison oak or poison ivy. We're going to have a whole other problem.
Oh dear.
And wipes that somewhere. I could just see that. Oh, it was really pretty shaped. If you've ever seen poison oak, it's actually really pretty. You're like, oh, it's really pretty. I'm like, why does something so nasty to us cause nastiness to us? It can be so pretty, but some things. So is a cactus until you fall into the cactus bush. So, but I appreciate your phone, you jumping on. I wanted someone to just, you know, give us some light and encouragement and some education. And hey, let's support each other. Nurses, stand up. Wellness advocates, stand up. You have people in your life, even online, that you can impact more, and you can educate and you can support.
Absolutely. We're all in this together.
Yep. And think about that when you're going out. You might need a mask. You might need some gloves. Or if you do, I'm sorry, they're not going to be Hopefully they'll be in stock soon, but get creative and make me a mask and send it to me of what you're putting on your face. Please not underwear. Please no underwear. Making a mask. Oh, there'll be some
We do
people
need
that
to
will
be
do it.
clear that masks right now are not something that masks are more to protect other people from getting sick from you,
Yep.
right? So
Yes. Yes. Yes.
especially if
Even,
you have not been trained to wear a mask and how to care for it,
yep.
it's probably not going to serve you the way you would hope it was going to.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's not, and if you're in quarantine, you shouldn't be going out with a mask, period. You should be staying in. If you're quarantined and you've been tested positive or you have signs and symptoms of anything, you should be
Right.
in your house, messaging people to bring you stuff. Drop it off. So you'll be better than Amazon. So thank you so much, Julie, for this
It was my
conversation.
pleasure.
And
It was good. It's always good talking to you about these things. And thanks for, yeah, like I said, just thanks for bringing me into the conversation. And I think it is important for us to get the message out that we're all in this together. And there is information. There are things we can do. And that our response is, that's all we have is controlling our response. So much
and
we don't have
our own emotions, our own self-care practices, and oil up now.
control of.
Yep. Yeah.